hold on tight. The champ is here. Mikey is raising the roof. He is loving it.
Let's be real for a second.
Let's be real. I'm excited to be real today. Mikey, we're now explain yourself.
I don't hate Russell Wilson.
Todd hates T.Y. Hilton. I know why he likes Nick Foles. Do you know why? Because he scored 55 points against them in the championship game last year.
Running backs in Andy Reid's systems, just fantasy gold mine. Sign me up there, man.
Yeah, and he's passing for 1,000 too, because his offensive weapons are shit.
Maybe. Oh my God, I can't even believe this, Eric. Todd comes out with some outlandish shit.
Come on.
But that one wins the night.
You deserve the torture of watching those games if you get them.
There's a problem with all those names. None of those guys are good.
Exactly. That's my point. That is 100% my point.
Hey. All I'm saying. Hey, I'm a very unique individual. You know, that's the.
I'm sure all the owners think so.
Oh man. Just when I think that they're out, they pull me back in.
Time to get into some running backs here on this edition of the MHA podcast. So glad you're joining us here on this mid-June evening. We just got done watching, the NBA draft is still going on, but watching that, seeing what the future of the NBA is going to look like. We're still a few months out from the beginning of the 2019 NFL season, but this crew is excited to talk football with you here on the show. I'm Eric Lansing along with Mikey Renaud, Todd Diamond, and hold on tight, the champ is here. The champ is here. Aaron Renaud is gracing us with his presence.
At the head of the table, no less.
No kidding. Thanks for being here. Everyone, how's everyone doing this evening?
Right. Great.
Doing okay. Doing just fine.
Yeah. Wow. Being announced like that, I figured you'd be doing great. I thought that was a great intro.
That was a pretty good intro.
Put in some John Cena music.
I did not bring my own entrance music this time.
Maybe next time.
There'll be a little special treat during the draft.
Wow.
Oh, Lord. That's
Yes, I love it.
Boy, oh boy.
It should be good. Should be good. All right, so what's coming up on today's show? We're going to talk running backs, and how about more running backs? We get into some of our rankings from the position. Who's our number one, of course? Where should Derrick Henry go? And if you're Mikey Renaud, you don't even have him ranked. That's not true, but he just dislikes Derrick Henry so much, and we'll ask him about that. We'll talk about rookies, who are the top handcuffs, and battle over some ranking disputes, and there's some doozies in there. That should be fun to talk about. A lot to cover on the episode, but before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show, yes. We didn't have meat and potatoes for dinner tonight, but maybe next time. We'll have to talk about, of course, Pat Bowlen, who passed away on June 13th at the age of 75. He was the Broncos owner after buying the team in 1984, helped the Broncos become one of the winningest organizations in the NFL, was instrumental in leading the team to 7 Super Bowl appearances with 3 Super Bowl victories. I could just reel off continuous, and the thing I had you guys do is kind of talk about your favorite moments, and you can tell me your favorite moment, but go beyond, if you can. We obviously love them winning the Super Bowl. That's obvious, right? But is there another Bronco moment that kind of stands out to you that is one of your personal favorites? Anybody can talk.
So for me, one that I kind of thought about was the divisional playoff game that they played against Houston in 1991, because that particular game was kind of like the first game that really just brought me in as a football fan. You know, I was 7 years old, but that's when I became a fan and when I became a Bronco fan. It was an incredible kind of back and forth game that, ended up going down to the final drive where John Elway had to, convert 2 big fourth downs in his own territory. And then they end up kicking the field goal. David Treadwell did, I think, and they almost botched that on a snap, if I remember right. But, yeah, they ended up winning that game by 2. And, it's just kind of ever since then.
That's a good one, because I remember even as a kid, when you get Sports Illustrated, you, read them over and over and over. That moment was just so amazing. I must have read that story 1,000 times in that.
Yeah, I think we all watched in the living room.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah. So that's a good one.
My mom was yelling at David Treadwell, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but if I remember right, it wasn't his fault. I think it was a bad snap.
What about you, Todd? Do you have a moment that stands out to you, other than the obvious?
The obvious. I mean, just the fact when Pat Bowlen came in and bought the team and just
you can't use that when you weren't even born yet.
I understand that, but
they don't know that you weren't born. Just go with it, Todd.
But because the year I was born was 1987, and that was one of the years they went to one of their Super Bowls, and when the Broncos won their first Super Bowl in the 90s, you know, everybody was just so happy. There was tears, everything like that. And, you know, for a second, I just, you know, couldn't really understand, like, okay, you know, it's great. Yeah, we finally won the Super Bowl. But, you know, it was more of just, you know, went to the Super Bowl 3 times in the 80s and never won it. And that was kind of what the reason why Pat Bowlen was so instrumental, because when he changed the culture. He changed the culture of that team and put them on the map. I mean, when I you know, look at old clips and everything of, you know, the Broncos in the 80s, you know, him on the sideline with his, you know, big fur coats and everything. And, you know, this was kind of interesting. I told Mike about this one. When he did pass away, when there was former Broncos on the NFL Network and they were talking about their favorite stories, and one that was pretty funny, Clinton Portis said he was Clinton Portis and Pat Bowlen were standing out in the parking lot looking at all the players' cars or whatever. He was just a rookie at the time, and Clinton Portis, yeah, look at all these cool cars. I hope I can, you know, buy one. And Pat Bowlen turns to Clinton Portis and goes, you know what? I bought all those cars for those players, and just walked away. I thought I was like, it's like I paid for all those cars.
Yeah, you got to appreciate Pat Bowlen not being a Jerry Jones type, right? Being out in the public of everybody and letting them know who runs. Right. You hardly saw Pat Bowlen. They would show him on TV. But what about you, Aaron? What sticks out to you through the Pat Bowlen years?
I think relating to Todd's topic on the culture of winning, and realistically, like vice versa with Jerry Jones. Like, obviously, I think for me, like being a Bronco fan and then winning the Super Bowl always boils down to that Jacksonville loss.
Of course.
And how painful that was and how angry I was after that.
I remember.
And then what I saw in the offseason was the Broncos strategically looked at the holes in their team and they filled every single one of them. Aggressively, like strategically pinpointed all the weaknesses that team had and fixed them. And that, like, made me believe that the team was as angry about that loss as I was and as committed to winning the next year. And I think, like, the next year over, I felt like that was a team of destiny just from the first whistle, from the first kickoff. I was like, these guys are fucking pissed off. The owner believes in it. The general manager believes in it. And they just, like, they went after it. And so I think, yeah, in relation to the culture of winning, instead of being like Jerry Jones and thinking he has the answers, Pat Bowlen found the people that knew the right things to do, and he wanted to win and made it happen.
They said, Michael Dean Perry, you don't want to get your fat butt off the field?
You're
out of here.
You're out.
And that's kind of like
Michael Dean Perry. Didn't think I'd hear his name on the broadcast this evening.
And that's
Where's he ranked in the running backs?
And that's just kind of mirroring what, you know, after the Super Bowl loss in 13, Elway had that same mentality. Hey, I'm gonna go find the right players to fix this. Yeah. So that's kind of
it makes you trust where the team's going. Where I don't know. Sometimes you feel like you're seeing the same thing that they're seeing.
Exactly.
When you see them address them, like, fuck yeah. Sorry, Eric. You might have to edit that one out.
No, I mean we're okay with the cursing on the show. He is the first owner in NFL history to reach 300 wins. And did so in his first 30 seasons. That is 10 wins per season. And in 35 total seasons, the Broncos only had 6 losing years. And, you know, the iconic words, it's always going to stand out. This one's for John because he understood how loyal Elway was. I'm sure at points he could have left and tried somewhere else. But they had such a good relationship that he stuck around. And I'm sure that happened with a lot of players.
I think he understood what the team meant to the city as well, which a lot of owners don't.
Yeah, for sure. So it's really great to kind of, I mean, it's not great to see someone pass of his nature and what he did for the program, but it's great to kind of look back on these memories. Let's keep going on with the show. Let's talk about some quick news and notes. We have a lot of running back stuff, so we're going to go through these pretty quick.
To me, the most amazing thing about the news is that whatever goes on in the world, it exactly fits the number of pages that they're using in the paper that day. Interesting concept. I mean, I don't know. They must stand around after each edition going, I don't believe we just made it again. You know what I mean? Just filled it up. Yeah. If one more thing happens, we're screwed. There's no more room in this paper.
Kyle Rudolph, Mikey's guy, extended 4 years for $36 million in Minnesota. So that's great. He's a guy that can help you out in a fantasy season, especially with the position not so great. In terms of someone having a rough time from the tight end position, it's Michael Roberts, who was traded, then not traded, then waived, then picked up, and then we found out today he was waived again. So Michael Roberts not on anybody's.
That's an exciting life, though.
Oh my goodness, that's an up and down roller coaster.
He's got a lot of hats.
Guy can't pass a physical.
Yeah, something must be up with him. Washington head coach Jay Gruden says Haskins, the rookie quarterback, could start week 1.
Why wouldn't he?
For sure. So there you go. That's something interesting. Bengals still injured. A.J. Green with a toe. Tyler Eifert still sitting on the sidelines. And Joe Mixon limited in practice. Mixon's not too serious, but that's something to keep an eye on. How about the Houston wide receivers hurt still as normal? It just seems like every year. Will Fuller not 100% recovering from torn ACL. DeAndre Hopkins not partaking in OTAs. That doesn't seem serious. And so not a lot of news going on these days. This is probably from about a week, maybe 2 weeks of information. So not a lot going on, but there's that. Are you guys ready for some MHA trivia?
Yeah.
All right, Brain. You don't like me and I don't like you. But let's just do this and I can get back to killing you with beer. It's a deal.
Okay, here you go. Since we're talking about running backs, let's do some MHA trivia on running backs. There are 9 running backs who ran for at least 1,000 yards in 2018. There were 13 running backs who reached 10 or more total touchdowns, but there were only 5 who did both. So tell me who those 5 running backs are that ran for 1,000 yards and scored 10 or more touchdowns. We'll start. I guess you guys can just go flip it out.
Saquon?
Saquon Barkley is correct. He had 1,307 yards and 15 total touchdowns, and he was number 1. Well, I don't know if there's not necessarily an order. Not necessarily in order. So that's one of the 5. Anybody else have a guess here?
I'll say Todd Gurley.
Todd Gurley is correct. In fact, he had 21 touchdowns and ran for 1,251 yards. You guys still have 3 left to go.
Melvin Gordon?
That is incorrect.
Okay.
I'll throw out Christian McCaffrey.
McCaffrey is correct. Ran for close to 1,100 yards, 13 touchdowns. You're still missing 2.
Zeke?
That is incorrect.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't him.
Well, yeah, we're going to talk about Zeke here in a little bit. Obviously, he's one of the top running backs on the draft boards. Still missing 2. May not be the guys you think.
Kareem Hunt.
Incorrect.
He's going to tear for a little bit.
I like Mikey's looking at his projection sheets. I don't know if they actually have the actual stats on them or not.
No, they
don't.
But
I mean, if you did, I think I would give you kudos for having notes.
It may help me.
Sure.
I don't know.
David Johnson.
Incorrect.
No, he had a terrible season.
Philip
I
Lindsay?
know.
Philip Lindsay, congratulations, 1,037 yards with 10 touchdowns. And number 5.
Seems like it's kind of an off-the-wall guy.
Oh, it's an off-the-wall guy.
I'm going to say Chris Carson.
That is incorrect.
Nah.
In fact, Mikey's favorite running back.
My favorite running back? I don't know if it's my
Opposite
favorite.
day favorite running back.
Derrick Henry.
Correct. Derrick
Whoa.
Henry, folks.
Oh,
Wow.
my Lord.
1,059 yards and 12 touchdowns.
Yeah, he got like
He had a good
8
December.
Yes.
Yeah, he had like 800 in
You have
December.
no idea how much I wanted to give you this MHA trivia 2 weeks ago when I found out about it.
He's a cold weather back. Get
So
him out
there
of,
you
get him out
go.
of Tennessee.
Interesting. We'll talk about Derrick Henry later on in the show. I'd love to talk about it
we have
right
to?
now. Yes. Absolutely. Rankings disputes. We're going to talk
I
about
wasn't
Derrick Henry.
prepared for that.
So there you go. Good MHA trivia. All right, let's get into it. Running backs. Dun, 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 dun. Always a fun position to have. Let's go. I gave you guys an outline with some questions. Hopefully you have some answers. Aaron can just jump in whenever he wants, although I sent him the outline too. Let's first ask, in terms of maybe running back drafting philosophy, do you need to draft a running back in the first 2 rounds? Go. Anybody can answer.
No.
Yes.
No.
Absolutely, yes.
I think that's funny coming from Aaron.
Exactly. That's my point. That is 100% my point.
Go for it. Go for
All
it.
right.
Spew it. I got it too.
You know,
Nice job, Mikey.
I would always think so, but understand we have a championship.
The champ is
the champ
here.
is sitting next to my right.
And who
Right.
did he draft in the first 2 rounds?
2 wide receivers.
That's correct.
In fact, he didn't even take a running back until round 5.
Until round
and
5.
round 5, that running back was Jay Ajayi, who got injured in the first game.
And he drafted Rex Burkhead in the 6th round.
So okay, but I will say this: he did take his receiver he drafted in the 2nd round and flipped him for a first round
That
running
is
back
correct. Yes.
later on. So I guess
Kind of.
Even though I don't know how much David Johnson helped him that much.
I guess if you have a receiver you're not using very much. I don't know.
I think there's many different ways to build a team. So I don't think you have to do it.
Great answer.
It's just you just kind of have to pick your spots and see where you're drafting at. And to me, it's more about the rest of your draft. If you can outdraft the rest of the people in the mid to late rounds, and how active you are, and the moves that you make during the season.
Anybody else want to disagree or agree? You said you agreed with two, Todd.
Yeah.
Is maybe that'll kind of lead into this question too. I mean, for me personally, I always like to have an elite wide receiver and an elite running back. I don't know, maybe just more of a mental foundation build. Like I feel like if I have 1 and 2, or 1 wide receiver and 1 elite running back, then I could build around them and be better. But you're right.
A balanced approach.
It's a balance, and you kind of feel comfortable knowing, well, if I got 1 wide receiver and 1 running back, everything else will be okay.
Yeah.
As opposed to 2 elite running backs and not having an elite wide receiver, then you're almost trading to get an elite wide receiver.
Sometimes at the back of the first round, though, it's like you get stuck in that place where you don't want to overdraft a running back where you can take 2 elite receivers.
Yeah, and that's when I draft, I usually just play the momentum of the draft and see how that takes me. I mean, I feel like if I could load up on talent, even if it's that one area, I can turn it around for something later on.
But we've seen for how many years in this that the first round is so unpredictable that a good percentage of the time a guy you think wasn't going to be there falls to you. So then your mindset kind of changes where, Eric, like you said, Eric, where, okay, I can get my elite running back, now I can go get my elite wide receiver. Now, if the dominoes fall the other way, I think you still stick with, with your plan going into the draft. Just because I think if you defer a little bit, then I think that changes the rest of your draft in general.
Ideally, you would get a running back in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
They score more points in our system than wide receivers.
Typically.
So you right, and it's not a science or anything. I think the top 5 in our point league outside of quarterbacks were running backs, and then the next 3 of 4 were wide receivers. So I think it just depends on the year and what's going on. Last year, a lot of high quarterbacks that scored a ton of points, and that's obviously going to filter down to wide receivers, probably push them up more than they usually are. Most folks in our drafted a wide receiver and running back in the first 2 rounds. Guys that are owners that didn't, we obviously talked about Aaron. CUP went Zeke and McCaffrey, and he finished 3rd. That was obviously 2 great ones to have. Gonzo Cats went Julio and A.J. Green, finished 4th. Kilgore Trout, who had the 12th and the 13th pick, had Cook and Fournette and went 4 and 9. So, yeah, there's probably not a science to it. In terms of the position, is it deep enough maybe to wait on running back this year? Do you guys feel that there are enough running backs to go around, or maybe you could get Adams or Michael Thomas or Hopkins in the first round, and then, or maybe get Travis Kelce, or if you're up on Patrick Mahomes, you get those 2 and then go 3rd, 4th, and be comfortable with that with running backs?
I'd rather get an elite running back first, and then because I think wide receiver, like I said, it's just more based on how in the past how some of my wide receivers I've drafted been 3 or 4s, and they've put up maybe they haven't put up close to the top 5 wide receivers, but enough where you can feel comfortable with it. So I'd rather have an elite running back.
So is the position deep? That's kind of where I was going with that question.
I think it's actually fairly deep, but I think the top 2 tiers are more intimidating if you see them on the other team. Like if there's somebody that's drafted well and has pulled one guy from the top 2 tiers, you're looking at needing to be able to match up pretty well with that.
I agree with Aaron on that. There is, at least to me, there's a real difference between the top 4 guys, at least for me, and everybody else. And so after that, I mean, what is really surefire elite? I don't know. I do think the position's deep. I mean, I think that you could go 20 to 30 deep where you have guys that can start for you week to week.
And feel comfortable them being your number 1? Or I mean, are you saying elite is number one? Or can you go to that next
I'm
two
just saying start for you. So, I mean, you've got 2 slots. So,
and possibly 3 if you're going to
right.
go with a flex in that position. But in terms of being deep, if you could go second tier, third tier as your number one, is that fine? I mean, a lot of us are
If
going to
you're
have
smart.
to, right?
If you're smart.
If there's 4, if you're saying there's 4, and I think we all have the same 4, Barkley, McCaffrey, Kamara, and Elliott. This is probably the top. That's the tier 1 for everybody, just about everybody. But if you're getting guys like Le'Veon Bell, James Conner, Nick Chubb, Dalvin Cook,
All the guys carry risk.
sure. But I mean, those are if you're not drafting in the top 6, you're probably not getting those guys. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of other teams.
But-
So I mean, but what you're saying then is, if you're deciding between someone like Melvin Gordon and Hopkins, right?
It's
Do
a
you
r-
feel
it's
you have to
a
get
real decision to make now?
sure
Isn't it?
it is, but if you think the running backs are deep, you can go Hopkins and then still be fine with someone like David Johnson, Damian Williams in the second round.
Sure.
Are you fine with that?
I am fine with
Fine
that.
with
I think there's a lot of value at the bottom, but I think if you're a team that finds yourself thin at running back and the playoff push, you're gonna lose. I think a lot of these running backs are gonna put up numbers this year.
Let's talk about who should be number one. Who's our number one? Last year, Giants rookie running back Saquon Barkley led the position with 336 points in our scoring system, 7 more points than Christian McCaffrey. In 2017, Todd Gurley led all backs with 328 points. Todd's Butterfinger squad had Barkley and rode his jersey all the way to a runner-up finish, so it shows you how important it is to get the number one overall. As we all know, Todd's pretty loyal to his guys. So, Todd, are you going to tell everybody that they should take Saquon Barkley with the number one overall pick?
Absolutely, because and I even go as to kind of a in the crystal ball prediction that obviously one of our divisions is named LaDainian Tomlinson. Saquon Barkley, he's going to get to that level. We're going to change that division.
Wow.
So that
Or we just create another one that you can be in by yourself.
well I mean that'd be pretty awesome.
Saquon
But
Barkley division consists of Todd. He'd be in the playoffs. He'd win the division.
exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
But I just think he's that good because of the predictions I had. Predicting what he's going to do this year.
Wait a minute, you're going to give us some numbers right now?
Yes.
Oh, hold on tight, y'all.
Here we go. So 300 carries, 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns, and then receiving 89 receptions, 621 yards receiving, and 3 touchdowns.
Wow, those are actually like legit
Reasonable,
numbers.
yeah.
Those are reasonable, legit numbers. There you go. Mikey, you shook it up last year saying Zeke should have been the number one running back drafted. He ended up finishing 5th overall in our system. Who are you going with this year? And I only say it that way because I know who it is. So who is it? Let's let the crowd know.
Dun, 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 dun. Now I believe I'm going with Zeke again.
Again, he didn't learn his lesson the first time. So tell us why. Why Zeke? I mean, he had such a great year, caught an incredible number of passes, and he still was only 5th.
Yeah, there's a reason for that.
Okay.
The biggest difference was touchdowns.
Sure.
And to me, that's something that's there's a certain amount of, I don't want to say luck, but chance to that whole thing. So, he had 6 rushing touchdowns last year, which was down from 15 his rookie season. He had 7, the second year. In a year he only played 10 games. He had 7. So what I see him getting back to a normal pace. And I think I have him projected at 12. So going from 6 rushing touchdowns to 12.
But what about his receiving? He had 3 receiving touchdowns, which gave him 9.
Yeah, I have him at 2. So
Okay.
so total 14 touchdowns total. But he's my number one back because I still think he's going to end up with over 60 receptions. I've got him at 67. The big key in this is that I have him at 1680 as far as his yards rushing. So I think he's going to lead the league.
That would be a career high for him. He had 1631 as a rookie. So you really think he's going to get back to his rookie ways, other than his receptions will be up?
Yeah, they're going to get Travis Frederick back, the center who was gone all year because of illness, the All-Pro center. So they're going to be back to being that dominant offensive line again. And I think it's going to help him out, especially in the red zone.
Is it going to help him out that Amari Cooper is there? He's had an off season. I mean, he was great when he came over, but to be more ensconced and having time to be a part of the system. You like ensconced? You like that?
I like the way you put that one in there.
Ensconced in velvet. But, I mean, do you think that's going to hurt Elliott with him being in there and taking some of the targets away, some of the touchdowns away?
If anything, that helps him. So you see what happened. So he had a low in touchdowns. Part of that was because Des Bryant was gone. When you take away a red zone threat, then what it does is everybody focuses on him. So now, you got Amari Cooper there. That should only help him. It's not going to hurt him.
Stretch the defense. Yeah.
All right, so Mikey's got Zeke. Todd's got Saquon Barkley. Aaron
Has no rankings.
no rankings, but do you
But
think that someone stands out?
If I was flying off the cuff and I'd say I had a number one pick and I knew I was going in on a running back, I think that I probably would go with Saquon.
Any particular reason? Anything that stands out? I mean, you're a guy that likes to see him in action, and you obviously
Right.
got to see him in action against
Obviously,
Todd
yeah.
in the championship.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the talent's there, but I think usage, I think the pass catching ability, I think is something especially with PPR, usually typically look at.
So, and I'm going to go with them as well in terms of picking Barkley. The thing, and I tried a little challenge and put Kamara number one. I was thinking just off the top, I'm just going to put him up there, and then I'm going to do my research to see if it changed it.
However, I will say as a whole, I hate the Giants.
Okay.
Well, I had my concerns with Barkley only because I have a feeling
Not on a personal level.
Daniel Jones is going to step on the field
garbage.
at some point, and it's going to force defenses to just clue on him.
The thing I like about, so after I put Kamara up there, thinking that Kamara, and it was just initially I thought, well, Kamara's going to come in, and with Mark Ingram gone, they're going to rely so heavily upon him. But the problem I've had with Kamara, I initially thought that, but as I did my more research, I don't think he's going to get 300 carries.
He's built to be a two-down
Saquon
back.
Barkley's going to get 300 carries,
Right.
and he's going to get 100 targets.
It's usage.
And so it's just, and he's going to play from behind, where Saints are going to win games. They're a good team. They may not have to play from behind, so the stats are going to go down. They still have Michael Thomas that eats up a bunch of targets.
Eli's already checked down on the season right now.
It's so tough because Barkley has just everything is there for him. He's good now. The offensive line could be better, but he did fine when they were that great last year. It's hard to take him out of the number one spot. Okay, we'll keep going here unless anybody else wants to say anything about it. So 3 of us had Barkley. Mikey goes Zeke. Who's number 2? And since we all had the same guy as Barkley and Mikey had Zeke, well, ask Mikey who his number 2 is going to be.
I think it's the same as you guys. I had Christian McCaffrey number 2.
We all had. Did we all have him too?
I think so, yep.
We sure did. We all like Christian McCaffrey. Tell me why you like Christian McCaffrey. You obviously had an incredible season. I think the thing that we weren't sure about heading into last season was how many carries is he going to get? We know he's going to catch the ball, but are they going to give him the workload? And they ended up giving him the carries.
They don't have any choice.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a team that's void of a lot of offensive talent besides him.
I'd be close to putting him as number 1, but
So
Cam Newton's.
and he was sheer volume-wise with Christian McCaffrey, it's kind of ridiculous. Like, the more and more that I thought about it, like, it's so hard for me to see a scenario where he doesn't get to 90 catches.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, he had
Like-
86 last year.
yeah.
No, he had 107 last year. Excuse me.
We've seen this scenario with the Panthers. Greg Olson's going to get hurt. Where's the volume going to go?
Sure.
It has to go somewhere.
Yeah, Cam Newton's deep throw or dump, and he can't run anymore because he's too beat up. Where's it going to go?
Yeah, one thing I liked last year that you finally started to see is that they were also using him more in the red zone, which is something they were not doing in his rookie year. So that just adds to his value.
7 times last year, he had 15-plus carries. 2 times 20-plus. And, yeah, the volume is just incredible. I was surprised to see his 219 rush attempts was lower than I thought. His 8 touchdowns are a bit lower, but it's just those 100 receptions. Oh, he had 6 touchdowns, and he had 1 passing touchdown. That's where that was. He had a passing touchdown on top of his 6 rushing touchdowns and his 7 rushing and 6 receiving, excuse me. So, yeah, incredible. So we all agree that Christian McCaffrey should go number 2, and nothing really changes. We're not going to go through, like, who's number 1, who's number 2, who's number 3. The next question's about Gurley, but do you guys want to say anything else about Kamara? Does anybody want to say? I mean, we kind of talked about Elliott, but we have Kamara in the top 4. Does anybody want to say anything about him?
I mean, I know it's another shocker. I'll throw some more numbers out for y'all. More numbers. I think this year he's going to get 200 carries, 900 yards rushing, 18 touchdowns, 71 receptions, 609 yards receiving, and 2 receiving touchdowns.
It's pretty similar to what you said about Barkley. Am I wrong on that? I don't have the numbers in front of me. But it seemed pretty similar, which is fine. It's not a big deal.
I mean, he had 883 yards rushing last year, so I bumped him to 900. It's more because I did read a report that the Saints are willing to make Michael Thomas the highest paid wide receiver. So that just kind of, when I saw that, I was like, well, maybe the receptions are going to, the receiving touchdowns aren't going to be there because they're going to want to feed the ball to Michael Thomas.
Or Jared Cook. I haven't really talked about that. I mean, obviously it's not a tight end show, but I think he'll actually be a part of that offense as well. Do you want to say anything about Kamara,
Well,
Mikey?
I was just going to say, with my projections, I think that Kamara is going to have more touchdowns than all 3 of those top 3 guys. I just don't think he's going to have the same type of volume as far as yardage and catches that the other guys will.
He averaged 28 points per game in our system without Mark Ingram. But he had one game with 100-plus rushing yards and had just 3 games where he had 15-plus carries. And I don't think they want to run him 25, 30 times a game.
No.
So I think he's going to put out similar. I mean, his ceiling is so high. He's going to score a bunch of touchdowns. He's a video game when you watch him. But in just terms of volume, he doesn't stand up to the rest, at least in my opinion, of McCaffrey and Barkley. And Elliott, we'll see what's going to happen. I mean, he's going to. I think his receiving numbers go down. I think that was an outlier. I don't think he reaches 77 again. But let's go on to this Todd Gurley talk here. We obviously are all very scared about what's going on with Todd Gurley.
Not yet. He's not on my team.
He was the number 1 scoring running back of 2017, finished 3rd last year. Knee issues down the stretch of last season, including the playoffs, and was a non-factor in the most important game of him and his team's season in the Super Bowl. It was recently reported that he has an arthritic component in his knee, and it came from having surgery on his torn ACL in college. The coaching staff said it's about managing their injury and his carries, which is what no one wants to hear if you're a fantasy owner. But that just means he won't be a workhorse running back anymore, at least as we're talking now. I mean, who knows how it's all going to pan out. But how worried should we be as fantasy owners, and where should we be drafting Todd Gurley?
There's real concern. For me,
there's a lot of sighing going on at this table right now.
And I'll be honest with
considering
you, I'm always the more risk-adverse owner compared to most people. So I'm still willing to be the guy at the end of round 2 that says, why not? I'll take Todd Gurley, round 2.
Now, you would be, based on your position, you'd be at the end of round 2.
Yes.
Mikey has him ranked 8th amongst running backs.
The upside is still there. My problem right now is I don't think the team knows, what.
I don't think either they never knew or they're just, especially last year, as the season was going along, you're wondering, do I need to get his backup? Do I need to find other options? If you had Todd Gurley on your team, even in the playoffs, you were never sure. He was warming up, and then he wasn't playing, or you get a series here and there.
And he's
That's
not
a scary thought, man.
I think if you're throwing the entire weight of your running back crew on Todd Gurley when you're drafting him and you don't back end him with something, then you're going to run some problems. Because I think the ballers like Gurley will probably show up at the end of the year, and you'll be glad you had him. But you're going to have to make sure you balance that out and make sure you have some other options.
We agree there because one of the things that when I was taking notes that I thought was going to happen was from a team perspective, and this is probably what I really think is going to happen, is that early on they're going to take it very, very easy on him. But as they start to see, they'll start ramping him up.
Have some depth in the beginning.
For a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, what makes you think he puts up any kind of fantasy numbers and not hold him into the playoffs? Right? You see what I'm saying there? I mean, obviously you need him to win games because you can't just not have him and not win any games and you're hunky-dory.
Well,
but
that's why it's important to do a couple of things. Either you handcuff him right away, as soon as you can, or then you just got to build your running back depth. You got to have a plan.
But I think too, maybe what the Rams will do too, and what the Broncos did with TD was, all right, if he gets you enough points in that first half, you can still feel comfortable. All right, if he gets you like at least like 15, 20 points, a game, and the rest of your running back depth or whatever, your second running back is is decent enough. I think you'd still feel comfortable enough drafting Todd.
He's not going to get you 20 points a game.
I think it's. I
think that's what you have to go into thinking. I think you have to go into the situation and say, if you're thinking about drafting Todd Gurley, you have to go in with the idea that you're getting half of what Todd Gurley is going to get in terms of touches wise. He's not going to get you 30 touches a game anymore. He's going to get you 10 to 15 maybe.
But at least those 10 to 15 touches that he gets will either be long runs or enough where you feel comfortable, drafting him.
But that's my question. If you're going to get 10 to 15, what kind of do you think you're going to get fantasy-worthy stats?
I think they would still,
especially for second round.
I think
that
you're correct that they would monitor his carries, but I think Sean McVay is smart enough to know where to use him. So I think he would be used in the red zone. I mean, if I were him, that's what I would do.
That's the most dangerous aspect of the field for a running back because your field is shorter. You're trying to jump in through a line, trying to muscle your way through. I don't know.
Smarter, more patient, though, than a rookie would be coming from behind him.
And they drafted a rookie, by the way, in the third round.
Right.
They traded up
and
to
that's
get to
because
this running back.
And that's why I think they don't know. They're protecting themselves.
That is tough.
Nervous.
That is a tough issue. Todd Gurley, I have him ranked 14th. Mikey has him 8th. Todd has him 6th. So, Todd, you're drafting at the end of the first round. If you see Todd Gurley come up,
if Todd Gurley's there, I'm drafting him because I mean it's the old high risk, high reward. And
can I just say thank you now, so I don't have to make that decision when it comes to me in the second round?
That's a hard decision.
But when Todd Gurley is on the field, whether like you said, whether he gets 10 or 15 touches a game or whatever the number is, he's still putting up fantasy numbers where you're gonna feel comfortable with.
I don't feel comfortable.
I don't think if it was me at the end of the first round, I would pull the trigger on that.
He's last year's Le'Veon Bell, and it didn't work out well for me.
Second round, would you take him?
Second round.
Now Aaron's a champ, so he would have the 12.
Second
13.
round would be a stronger thought. Definitely at the end of the first, I wouldn't pull the trigger on that. Okay. Second round. I don't want to. Somebody else do it.
There you go.
But I'd be
sounds
right.
like Todd's gonna help you.
But if Aaron didn't make that decision and he fell to the second round, if for some reason if I didn't take him at number 11, then he fell to the second round, then I would take him too. But if he's there at number 11, why not?
I wouldn't reach around high talent at another position to grab him in the second.
It's definitely something to monitor as the preseason goes along. Let's talk about another guy, one of the only running backs to have 200 carries and 50 targets, along with Zeke, Barkley, Johnson, David Johnson, and along with Todd Gurley, McCaffrey, and Mixon, and that's James Conner. Is he a first-round pick, and can he put up similar numbers as we saw last year? Mikey, go for it.
I don't think he's a first-round pick. I've got him at 12 in my rankings. All I keep hearing about in their OTAs and their off-season workouts is that they're trying to manage his workload, give him a little bit less, and divide the carries more between him and Benny Snell, the rookie, and Jalen Samuels, who was pretty decent when he was out with injury at the end of last year. And so I started to think about, am I really buying this? Do I think it's true? And then I thought about it, and I said yes, because before Le'Veon Bell showed up on the scene, who's a superstar, this is kind of what the Steelers do. So I looked at it, and before he got there, it is what they do. They were always shifting these different type of running backs and using 3 different guys. They were using Jonathan Dwyer. They were using Isaac Redmond. They were using Rashard Mendenhall. They were using Mowell Moore. They were using Najee Davenport.
Oh, my.
It's what the Steelers do.
Jonathan Dwyer.
There's a problem with all those names. None of those guys are good. James Conner is a good running back. He came into a situation where they didn't know if he was going to have to take over. He took over, and he played incredibly well. And I'd take him over any of those other scrubs.
Why are they putting this information out there, though, is my question.
Who knows?
There's
I
a
mean,
lot of
like-
chatter.
like they
There's a lot of
felt-
chatter.
smoke and
in junior
mirrors.
Like
OTAs.
they felt like they gave him too much work last year, and that's why he got hurt.
he's already been injury prone, right? Like he had that big injury in college and was drafted late because no one knew of his situation. He didn't really have a senior year.
Well, he had the cancer,
Well, there you go.
so I don't know.
I don't know.
It's risky.
He enters his third season.
I mean, is there legitimate talent in any of the guys behind him?
I wouldn't
They
say
drafted Benny Snell pretty
Yeah,
high.
but
Because I think most coaches go into a season, especially with
Fourth
someone
round.
who's been injured, they want to ideally they want to manage workload, they want to manage carries. That's what every coach is going to tell you. And then when you get into the fire and you need someone who's going to constantly produce, some of those game plans that you had in June kind of go out the window, and you just start throwing them all the work anyway.
I think the thing that Pittsburgh does well is their offensive line's always great. So any of us could go in that offensive line and produce. But if at the end of the day, James Conner went out and did it. Now, I know they're not great to the running backs. Obviously, we saw with Le'Veon Bell. It's not like James Conner's asking for money at this point. But, man, he was so productive, and he did break down towards the end. But he's still a young guy, too.
Now, let's not forget, he did really well, and this goes back to my Cowboys point. You're losing Antonio Brown in that offense,
That's true.
which is going to be a really big thing. I mean, that's a big piece leaving, and they can now focus more. I know Juju Smith-Schuster is really, really good, but it's going to allow defenses to kind of hone on him a little bit.
Yeah, I think there could be more focus, but they always pop out another receiver. Someone else is going to stand out. Big Ben, as old as he is, he's still putting out good numbers. That offensive line's still great.
I'm just saying, first round, you're counting on that.
Sure. And I think compared to other options, you mentioned after the top four, there's a lot of question marks. So in terms of, if I'm just looking at Mikey's quick rankings here, he's got Melvin Gordon in front of him. Behind him, Aaron Jones, Kerryon Johnson, Nick Chubb. You could say Le'Veon Bell. He's got a lot of question marks too. Todd Gurley, question marks. David Johnson, question marks. So it just depends on kind of how you feel. And that's why I have Connor a little bit higher ranked than you guys. If I just look at my list here, Connor, I have him 7th. Oh, excuse me, I have him 7th. Todd has him 7th. And Mikey has him 12th. I just think there's a lot in place for him to be successful. Where David Johnson, we don't know who's going to be successful over there. So I think that's why I'm a little higher on James Conner. They returned all 5 starters on the offensive line, which is incredible. Big Ben could still throw it around, stretch out the defense. We'll see which receiver, whether it's James Washington or someone that they drafted. But I still think the offense can put up a lot of numbers, and James Conner definitely benefits from that. Todd, do you want to say anything about Conner before we move on?
I mean, I'll just throw some more stats out here. But
you were on a projection roll today.
And what can I say? So 250 attempts, carries 250, 1,050 yards rushing, 15 touchdowns, 66 receptions, 530 yards receiving, and six receiving touchdowns.
So you're saying double digits in touchdowns. Let's go to one of the other guys we kind of mentioned in Le'Veon Bell. He sat out an entire football season. And now, he waited and got paid by the Jets. The Jets offense hasn't been one of the most enviable teams do you want to draft fantasy guys from. But perhaps with a second season of Sam Darnold, we'll see what Robbie Anderson can do. They love that Chris Herndon guy.
Oh, already sounds disgusting.
Yeah. Perhaps Bell can come in and help that offense at least be maybe average. I don't know. You guys could tell me. No one expects Bell to put up the numbers he put up in Pittsburgh. What kind of numbers can we expect from him this year? Todd, you've been rolling out numbers. Do you want to give me your thoughts on Le'Veon Bell?
Why not?
16 touchdowns.
Very good, Aaron. 300 carries, 900 yards rushing, 13 touchdowns, 60 receptions, 500 yards receiving, and 6 receiving touchdowns.
That's a terrible year. If he has under 1,000 with 300 carries, something's going wrong there.
But
that just means our offensive line's terrible and they're forcing the issue.
Yeah. So it's more of the, we talked about this at the beginning that in the previous podcast where Le'Veon Bell, I hope he realizes how good he had it in Pittsburgh, even though obviously they didn't pay him. But the offense and the quarterback, I mean, he's going from Big Ben to Sam Darnold. I mean, obviously the jury's still out on Sam Darnold. This is only his second year. He's still developing. I mean, you're going from a Hall of Famer to a player that still needs to prove himself. So I mean, yes, those numbers, yes. In any other year, they would say, wow, that's pretty low. But, sitting out a year, I know with running backs, it's kind of tricky because obviously their shelf lives aren't as long. But I think, if anything, those numbers there is decent enough where I think fantasy owners in reality will be satisfied at least for that year. Because I mean, if they think they're going to be win Super Bowls, they got another thing coming. So
How many touchdowns did you say he was going to get?
Total 19.
19. Can we go over under 19 Jets scoring that many touchdowns as a team?
They'll be over that. I have him at 9 total touchdowns.
What do you think about Le'Veon? In terms of where we have him drafted, 8th, and 9th. So we have him pretty similar.
I think it's destined to fail in New York. I really do. I mean, you already have it known out there where the coach never wanted him. I don't think there's any way he gets to 300 carries.
Right there.
Yeah, there's no way he gets to 300 carries. This is Adam Gase's system that's a little bit more pass happy. He had Kenyon Drake in Miami and never used him.
Yeah, but Kenyon Drake, you're comparing Kenyon Drake to Le'Veon Bell.
I know, but what I'm saying is some guy he doesn't even want on his team, he's going to run him out there 300 times? I don't think so.
Le'Veon Bell is I mean, yeah, he sat out, but when he's on the field, he is one of the top running backs in
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yeah. I just don't think that Gase is going to do it. And that's what I'm saying.
I'm looking forward to
If
the
Gase
ESPN
wants to keep his
highlights
job, I think he's going to.
where Le'Veon Bell's yelling at Gase and yelling at Darnold on the sidelines, and they're chatting about what's going on in New York because I feel like that's just going to happen.
New York's going to eat it up. They're going to love
man,
it.
the headlines are going to be incredible. The thing I'll say, Kenyon Drake, and we'll talk about him, but he averaged 5 yards a carry and didn't use them. That's not my opinion, and I know you're trying to run a system, but if there's a guy's averaging 5 yards a carry, you use him.
Yeah.
And he catches the ball well, too. So they screwed up with him, and I think they're going to screw up with him.
He'd rather pass with Jay Cutler and Brock Osweiler than use a guy that's averaging 5.5 yards a carry. Didn't make sense.
Yeah.
The volume will be there for him. They'll be whether it's catching the ball or running the ball, I agree it's not going to be 300, but they don't have a choice. When Gase starts realizing the wins aren't happening because he wants to go his way, he'll realize, like, you know what, maybe I should give him the ball more.
See, and
because that's what's going to happen. The fans are like, use Le'Veon more, use Le'Veon more, and then it's eventually going to happen.
There's going to be a clash of egos, a clash of media.
Man, it's not a good.
And see, that's where the 300 carries will pop up.
Nothing in Gase's history tells me that you guys are right about that. He's as stubborn as a mule.
Well, there's a reason why I can't keep a job in one place for very often, but we have him ranked 8th and 9th.
Yeah, because talent alone.
We've said a lot of negative things right now, but we have him ranked in our top 10 amongst running backs.
Overall talent alone, and this is where
that.
it gets into talent alone, because I have him finishing under 1,000 yards rushing, but I think points-wise he still gets there. The combination of his running and receiving gets him there.
Let's talk about a guy that ended up staying where he was at, Damian Williams. He's Mikey is raising the roof. He is loving it. Williams was quickly added amongst all fantasy rosters last season after Kareem Hunt was dismissed from the team. Mikey, were you one that got to pick him up?
No.
That's too bad. And Williams did not disappoint as he had an incredible run that included the fantasy playoffs and the NFL playoffs. So the fantasy football community is excited to see what he's going to do this season. Now, the problem with Williams, at least maybe in my opinion, is he's never, ever put together a top 10 fantasy season in his 5 years in the NFL. How are you guys feeling about Damian Williams? We'll let Todd go. We'll let you sit there and stew. Mikey is saying, eat it up, eat it up. Todd, what do you think about Damian Williams?
All right, projections first here. So I think I know.
We're going to go projections every time.
Yeah, I'm going to go projections every time. Hey, give the numbers. That's people want. So I think 180 carries, 900 yards rushing, 12 touchdowns, 25 receptions, 200 yards receiving, and 4 receiving touchdowns. Now, obviously, last year, because he kind of came in the middle of the season, because he only had 50 attempts last year, 256 yards rushing, and only 4 touchdowns last year. But I think now, the coaches kind of gave him that confidence or gave him that stamp of approval, like, you're going to be the running back. No ands, if, or buts about it. So
Mikey, you seem like you're on the Damian Williams train. Let me just throw out the rankings. I have him ranked 12th. Todd, the least favorite of Damian Williams, has him 17th. And Mikey Renault, top 5. He actually has him 5th. So tell me why, big boy, about Damian Williams.
All right, first of all, there is no way that if you think Damian Williams is going to score 12 rushing touchdowns, that he's going to finish 17th. I'll tell you that right now. I'm just going to throw it out there. And 25 receptions is just way too low. I'll tell you that too.
Did you know that Damian Williams averaged under 20 receptions for his entire career per season?
Yeah,
Except with the Chiefs.
He was sitting.
Yeah, I think he had 25 with the Chiefs.
Yeah, that's short work.
He was dying out in the desert in Arizona for most of his career.
Miami.
So, yeah, I mean, he's such in the perfect situation. It doesn't even matter that it's Damian Williams. It could be anybody else. This is not Damian Williams. This is Andy Reid, ranked 5th.
I agree with Mikey's point. Where,
So you're
where
saying
else are they going to go?
So you're saying if we put Todd in there, he's going to be a top 5 fantasy running back?
He'll get 3 downs.
When it comes to using running backs,
3 downs is important.
when it comes to using running backs, Andy Reid is the man. The man is a genius. He knows how to use running backs. So it's nothing's going to look different. It's just going to look like Kareem Hunt, except it has a different name on the back of the jersey.
Wow.
So
I'd go a little less than that.
So
but
I agree with
I think
Todd.
your point's valid.
I agree with Todd on the 12 rushing touchdowns. That's where I had him. But I have him over 1,000 yards. I've got 1,052 on the rushing yards. I have him at 64 receptions, which blows up to 25, 480, and 7 receiving touchdowns. So I'm talking 19 total touchdowns for him.
19 total touchdowns. Now, we obviously know how incredible he was in the last 4 games of the regular season and playoffs. I don't know. Looking back he's played 16 games 3 times. Now, he didn't get used because he had 36 attempts in 1 year of 16 games, 16 attempts of another. Ended up having 50 last year. This is the first year he's ever had over 5 yards per carry.
It's okay.
3-4, 3-7, 3-3, and 3-9.
I guarantee you this right now, and the draft comes. If he reaches me on that back way around on that second round, it will take me less than 3 seconds to say Damian Williams.
We'll have the clock.
Bring
ready.
your stopwatches.
So okay, you stated against him why you think he is. So I think, what about the guys around him? In terms of now, if I look at your rankings, it would be easier than trying to figure out everybody else's rankings and where you kind of have them at. But over guys like Joe Mixon,
Yes.
and Melvin Gordon,
Yes.
and Todd Gurley, Le'Veon
Yes.
Bell.
Yes and yes.
So you're almost telling me there's no question marks with this guy.
I'm telling you, if he
Come on,
stays
Mikey.
healthy, I am telling you what's going to happen.
I think that's it, though. I think these decisions with running backs always come down to usage and the coach philosophy. And he's going to get a ton of usage. He's going to be down to 3 downs pretty much every game. I think the question is whether he can withstand that.
And that's true. I see, like Mixon, I think has a shot of being one of the top rushers in the league, but doesn't have the type of receiving equity that Williams is going to have. It's so much different, especially with Andy Dalton throwing him the ball versus Patrick Mahomes.
Who is, and I'm trying to look this up now and stalling for time, but who is the backup running back in Kansas
It's
City?
Carlos Hyde,
Yeah. So
who's very, very low in my rankings, but is at the top of my list in handcuffs.
Are we worried in terms of Tyreek Hill is gone, and he's a big reason why that offense was number 2, I think, overall in the league. Are we worried about kind of a drop-off in how this offense – no one thinks that – and we talked about it, and I can't speak for Aaron because he wasn't on the show, but in terms of 50 touchdowns, that's not going to happen again for Patrick Mahomes. So I think – it's just natural to think and it's natural to know that the offense is just going to regress. So are those numbers still going to be big there for Damian Williams?
Has an Andy Reid offense ever been bad? Think of it.
It made Alex Smith look pretty good.
Ever been bad? Ever? And
He's got a pretty good track record with running backs.
Yeah, he made Corell
Especially in
Buckhalter
PPR.
look good.
yeah, that's
Okay.
He's a PPR guru, Andy Reid.
Think about
Top 5.
Think about the seasons that Brian
Success is on
Westbrook
his
had
menu.
under Andy Reid.
Yes, they're all. But we're talking about a guy who caught lightning in a bottle, who took his opportunity and ran with it and was great. That's done. Now everybody know. Now with Tyreek Hill gone, they can just focus on him. Obviously there's Kelsey.
It's a
I don't know. I
system made
think
for the
5 is a
running back
little
to-
high.
especially in
I have him in
fantasy.
the top 12. The top 5?
Yeah, I think
You're talking about that's a risky move.
I don't think so. At least not for me. Let it happen.
Where are you drafting?
4th, I think. So it'd
So
have to hit me.
But
on
if
the
you were
way back.
fifth, and all those other running backs are taken,
Yes.
you would take him.
Yes.
That's interesting. I don't agree with it, but I like it. I mean,
I
go
think
ahead.
5 is high, but I agree with Mikey's point.
Let's talk about a guy that has immense upside and is so much fun to watch, but his biggest deterrent is himself, Dalvin Cook. Could he end up in the top 5, or his injury is going to plague him again? Man, oh man, he's got so much talent. What are you laughing about?
Top 5. I'm sorry.
That's why I was asking. You could just said no. So if you want to go ahead and chuckle, let's go ahead and talk about Dalvin Cook. Talk about him.
Look, I 100% believe in the talent. I really, really do. But there's massive injury risk when it comes to Dalvin Cook. The other thing that really bothers me is that Minnesota loves him between the 20s, but always shies away from him in the red zone. So,
It's probably because he gets injured.
if a guy doesn't have like that touchdown equity, there's no way he's getting into the top 5. There's a really bad chance of him getting into the top 10. So I mean, I've got him 23rd in my rankings.
Who was his biggest deterrent, though?
There's a rookie
Latavius Murray, and he's gone.
Correct, but they made sure that they drafted a guy that kind of, I would say, body type resembles him.
I'll give you credit. What's that gentleman's name?
Alexander Madison.
I didn't even know who that was until I started looking it up.
I didn't know either.
Yeah, but he is the backup. They have no one else.
Yeah, well, I guess
We'll talk about handcuffs, but this is a guy you definitely have to handcuff.
I mean, I don't know too well on his end, but do they really run 3 down backs, or is there a rotation in there where they pull some guys on a guy out on third down?
They really don't have it. They don't really run a scat back guy.
Yeah.
Like Mikey says, they use Latavius Murray in some red zone situations and on 3rd and 1 situations, but not really have a guy that's going to go out there and catch passes. Because Dalvin Cook can catch passes.
He can.
Todd, would you want to say something about Dalvin Cook before I rebuttal? Because I'm obviously the most high on this gentleman.
I mean, it just comes down to the injury. Just repeating what everybody said. It's the injury. I mean, the dude can't stay on the field for more than 5 minutes. And again, throw some numbers out here. What a shocker. If he can stay on the field for the whole season or for a good portion of it, 190 carries, 800 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns, 50 receptions, 320 yards receiving, and 4 receiving touchdowns. Now,
Where do you have him ranked?
29th.
That's pretty good numbers for the 29th ranked dude.
Yeah, but that
is incredible.
But that's just
Todd's saying the most points ever scored in the NFL season happening this year in 2019.
But it's just more of him just staying healthy. I mean, if he didn't have the history of being injury prone, I think we'd all have him in the at least top 10, but just injury prone. And at least if he can get those numbers and stay on the field for more than like I said, more than 5 seconds, then I'll draft him.
Kubiak's system should help him out a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll admit.
For him, you're right. If he wasn't wasn't hurt all the time, I think his carries would go up. But I still think with the limited carries, and limited is, I guess, depending on what your idealism of limited is, because he's still the only guy. Now this is an offense that struggled a little bit on the offensive line. I think that's going to be a little bit better this year. They're still going to be run the ball, pass second, defense. I think unless the defense is terrible. Now, they weren't great last year, where 2 years ago they were incredible, and we thought, well, they won't need to score a lot of points because the defense is so good and they'll just run out the ball. I think it's going to go back to that, and I think Dalvin Cook's going to get a lot of that, but I think that backup is going to get it as well, Mr. Alexander there. Man, he averages 4.8 yards per carry, catches the ball with ease, and he's a guy, I have him ranked 10th, and you guys have him ranked 29th and 23rd, which is absurd. I understand he's injury prone, but so is a lot of these people that we have in the top 10. And so he's a guy that has the ability to put up staggering numbers if he can stay out there. And I'm willing to take a chance on him with a better offensive line, good offense. I can move the ball, score points, and they'll use him to run out the clock depending on what's happening if they like this rookie backup. But with no backup, he's going to get all the carries, and it's going to be great to have.
Don't forget they have Amir Abdullah.
Yeah, okay. We know what you think about Amir Abdullah, too.
But Eric, the difference is when you're saying, that all the running backs ahead of, kind of have injury questions coming into this,
You have 27 running backs ahead of him. So there's going to be a lot of question marks on some of those guys you had.
But just saying, but the thing is why a lot of people are not, because Dalvin Cook's been hurt more than some of these running backs, in their careers. So, like with Todd Gurley.
So guys you have above him. Miles Sanders.
Well, that's Dalvin Cook.
Fine. Okay. Jordan Howard, Latavius Murray, who's a backup. LaShawn McCoy, who hasn't been healthy in 5 years.
But I can't support
so Dalvin Cook, if he plays 16 games, he could be a top 5 running back, in my opinion. So I'm willing to take a little chance on him. Anybody want to say anything else before we move on? All right. So Philip Lindsay. Von Miller is always an incredible thing to watch for us as Bronco fans, especially on those Sundays. But who would have thought that Philip Lindsay would come in and be exciting to watch on the other side of the ball? The rookie busted out for 5.4 yards per carry, scored 9 touchdowns on a pretty anemic Broncos offense. As Broncos fans, we got to see the very best from the former CU product. He did fracture his wrist, I believe on Christmas, or at least around Christmas, and was described as a pretty serious injury. They are saying he should be ready to go when the Broncos open training camp in about a month. Aaron, you're a Broncos fan, so I'll throw you on the spot and talk about what do you like about Philip Lindsay, and can he do similar things as last year?
Are we just letting go of Devontae Booker at this point?
I think he's physically still on the roster, but I don't know if you have to worry about him too much. Are we deciding that's done?
Okay. I think he's going to have a even better year. I think it's
better year.
It's looking even better for him. I think you've got a quarterback that's going to stretch the field out a little bit more, give him more room to breathe. I think things are looking up for him.
So Aaron likes Philip Lindsay. Mikey?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why he can't match what he did last year. They're bringing in a Shanahan disciple to kind of run the offense. It's not like we're going to go super pass heavy with, a maybe hobbled Emmanuel Sanders and 2 receivers in their second year.
And an aging quarterback.
Right. So I believe our offense
right.
should be run similar to where we are running the ball a lot and running a lot of play action. So, yeah, I think that Lindsay's got a decent shot of duplicating what he did last year.
In terms of rankings, I have him ranked 20th. Todd has him 19th. Mikey is the highest at 17. Anything you want to say about Philip Lindsay?
Projection time.
Yeah, projection time.
I gotta stop asking that question. I just got to move on. Go ahead.
Okay.
500,000 yards.
Yes, 500.
50 touchdowns.
Okay. 200 carries, 1,110 yards rushing, 12 touchdowns, 44 receptions, 300 yards receiving, and 12 receiving touchdowns.
Ooh,
12 receiving touchdowns, and you have him ranked 20th?
19th.
19th?
Oh, man.
East Coast bias.
These games are going to be like 60 to 50.
All right.
Because I'm just more basing it off the fact with a
flying under the radar with those 12 touchdowns.
with a hobble Emmanuel Sanders and still 2 wide receivers in their second season. So I think that's going to open more opportunities for Philip Lindsay.
What about Royce Freeman? Does he mix in there at all?
I think he'll be
better. Anybody worried about him?
I think he'll be better.
Yeah, I think his stats will go up, which will take away from Lindsay. That's why I wasn't too high on him. The thing that scares me about Lindsay is he plays with such a chip on his shoulder that he runs into people as he's going out of bounds. And that's not a good combination for a guy who's small like him. Now he busted up his wrist, but it's one thing to have that swag and people didn't pick me, but at some point you got to slide and you got to get out of bounds as opposed to fighting your way out of bounds when you don't need to. And so I hope he doesn't end up being injury prone is my biggest concern with him. If he could stay healthy and stay out of it, he showed an incredible burst in his run. He could get up down the sidelines. It's really fun to watch him. I don't know if his receiving numbers are going to go up though, but we'll kind of see with that. And yeah, you're right. I think Royce Freeman. I have him. He ran for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. Those numbers could go up because I think they'll use him, especially if he's not 100%. By the time the season comes around, we'll probably see more of him to start the seison. So that's something to keep an eye on. All right, you guys ready to play a game?
Yeah.
You guys ready for some game action?
Want to play a game?
That's right. I could saw Todd's arm off, so he stopped writing down projections, but
Okay.
Numbers from Todd.
Okay, so here's how this game is going to go as I play game music behind here. I'm going to give you two choices. You're going to tell me who you think is the right answer, and I'll tell you if you're wrong or if you're right. Unless you sway me. I think I'm trying to be open-minded on these. I tried to pick these as close as possible to everybody's ranking, so they're awfully close. But, we'll kind of see. I'll tell you if you're right or wrong. Really, that's how it all is. You'll get a buzz if you're correct and a if you're wrong. All right, so let's start it off. Number 1, and we'll start with Todd on this one. Aaron Jones or Josh Jacobs?
I'm going to say Aaron Jones.
Okay.
Thinking a better offense, obviously, and attached to Aaron Rodgers.
So Todd says Aaron Jones. Mikey?
I agree. I think it's Aaron Jones. This kind of goes back to what I was telling you guys in the podcast before. I think that Green Bay's offense is changing. I think that their moves show that. They're going more defensive oriented. They're going to run the ball more. You kind of see a little bit of bickering between the new coach and Rodgers already. This is what it's going to be. They're going to be a more run team than they've ever been with Rodgers under center.
Aaron, do you want to play this game, or you want to chime in about anything?
I'll play devil's advocate and go Josh Jacobs.
Okay. The answer is Aaron Jones. I told you guys last year I loved his stuff. He is so electric when he's out there. 5.5 yards per carry in both of his NFL seasons. Give me an Aaron Rodgers offense any day. Number 2.
You didn't want to hear me do like a Spider 2Y banana reference or anything like
No.
that?
No,
All right.
we'll just move on from there. All right, number 2, and we'll start with Mikey this time. Kenyon Drake or Devonta Freeman?
Close for me, but I'm going to go with Kenyon Drake. Don't get me wrong, offense is much, much better in Atlanta, but I do not trust Devonta Freeman to stay healthy, especially not after the last 2 years. I think that Atlanta does have something invested in Ito Smith. So I'm taking Kenyon Drake, who I think is a good running back that wasn't utilized the way he was supposed to. I think if Miami has any chance this year, they're going to have to run the ball. And they're going to have to take advantage of what he can do out of the backfield. I'm going with Drake.
Of course you would. Drake. Love the Drake. Todd, Freeman or Drake?
Freeman.
Okay.
I'm just more basing it off of the fact he's in the better offense. I mean, I know injury prone, I get it, but still in a better offense. And now no Telvin Coleman. It's all. I mean, Ito Smith. I'm really not afraid about him taking as many carries away as everybody thinks. So I go Devonta Freeman.
Aaron?
I'll go. Mikey makes a good point, but I'd go with Devonta Freeman as well.
Freeman is the correct answer. Man can catch the ball. 73 of those, 73 receptions 3 seasons ago. Averages about 12 touchdowns per season. I really like what he brings to the table, although there's a lot of upside with Drake as well. All right, and this was a fun one. I liked going with this one. James White or Tariq Cohen? Todd?
Oh, James White all day long. Passing running back, obviously, that's one of Tom Brady's safety blankets. I mean, next to Edelman. Obviously, I have him this year, 95 receptions, 994 yards receiving, and 10 touchdowns.
So he says James White. Mikey?
I agree, but it's another one that's really close to me. I mean, they're so similar. I actually think Cohen's probably a better playmaker, but I think White will have more chances to score more touchdowns playing in the offense with the Patriots. I mean, and there's just drives where James White gets 5 to 6 5 to 6 receptions on a drive. That just boosts his points up. So while I think it's close, I give a slight edge to James White.
Aaron?
I'll go with Cohen just because there's the slight chance that James White, eats the wrong thing for breakfast. Belichick gets mad, benches him for the rest of his career, and digs up somebody from the bottom of the roster to be the running back.
Aaron is correct. James White had 12 touchdowns. He is not getting 12 touchdowns again. Tariq Cohen's a playmaker. I mean, I have him one spot above of James White, but Cohen is the answer. Maybe we'll start with Aaron on this one just because he had Chris Carson. Chris Carson or Marlon Mack?
Oh, I had both of those guys last year.
Yeah, they were both on Aaron's team. That's correct.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah.
Anyway, man, that is a tough one. I'm going to go with Chris Carson on that one. Only because based on what I saw last year, Marlon Mack really only got usage in the red zone.
Okay.
And beyond that, it was kind of hit or miss. I think a lot of people are banging that Rashard Penny drum, but I don't really believe in it.
He's not believing in the penny.
Yeah, he's a bad penny. And I just, Yeah, I'll go Carson on that one.
Okay, Mikey.
I had to think about what's most likely to happen. And I thought about our scoring system. I thought about the fact that Chris Carson is used so much in that Seattle system where they're just going to run him into the ground. And the fact that he is such a physical running back. By nature, he runs into people. And he's already kind of had some injuries in his past on top of it. I think there's a likelihood that he gets hurt at some point during the season.
I can see that.
And the offense that Marlon Mack is in is just so much better. They're going to score more points than Seattle does. I think you started to see like Mack really starting to come on in that second half of the season, and I think he's going to carry that momentum into this year.
Okay, Todd.
I go return to use a reference. Return to the Mac. And I think Marlon Mack's he's gonna have I think improved season now where they're gonna lean more heavily on him as well. So I think the Mac will be back.
All right, and the Marlon Mack folks would be correct. Although Carson, who finished the last 4 games of the season as the number 4 overall running back, Mack has an incredible offensive line, Andrew Luck, and we'll get the goal line carries. That's going to be huge. Marlon Mack is the winner. Now, this is a tough one, but who would you guys pick amongst Matt Breida, Tevin Coleman, or Jerick McKinnon? I mean, you have to pick one. You cannot not pick one.
Okay, and I'll start us off by saying, like, it's not like I'm a huge fan of any of these 3.
Stay away.
Yes, I'm telling you to pick one.
But this is the smartest way that you can look at this, okay? Because I think at some point during the season, each one of them is going to get their chance. But right now, like, Breida, torn pectoral is banged up. McKinnon's coming off the ACL is banged up. So Tevin Coleman's coming in a system he already was under with Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta and is getting the rep with the first team. So he's got a head start on these guys. So he's going to be the guy that gets the first shot at it. So based on that, I think that Tevin Coleman probably has the best chance to finish in front of those 2 other guys.
Okay, Todd?
Oh, Coleman all the way. I mean, like I said, McKinnon, Breida, both hurt. That's game over. Coleman. Coleman, that's game over on that one. He already won that. It doesn't matter if he was ahead or, whatever the case may be. He was going to get the starting job anyway.
Dude loves Tevin Coleman.
He does.
Man.
Aaron, you want to throw a name out there who you like if you had to pick one?
It's Russian roulette. Stay away from it.
Bring the gun.
Breida finishes the season. There
right.
you go.
Wouldn't surprise me.
I said if all 3 are healthy, give me Jerick McKinnon to have the most points at the end of the season. If you're asking me who I'm going to draft for the first week of the season, I'm going Tevin Coleman. Obviously, preseason is going to be a big indicator of what happens. Tevin Coleman is just a number 2 running back, and he'll be the backup to Matt Breida or Jerick McKinnon, depending if they're all healthy. Let's go to another tough situation to draft one, but an interesting one. In Washington, Adrian Peterson, Chris Thompson, or Darius Geis, Todd?
AD all day long. I know Adrian Peterson is 34 years old, but Geis injury, so this is technically his first year, so he's going to be a little rusty. Chris Thompson, more of a scat back, I mean, obviously catches passes, but I'd still want to go with Adrian Peterson. Still runs like he's, in his 20s, so.
Mikey?
You tell me Adrian Peterson's going to have 15 touchdowns, son. Don't tell me that. I don't want to know.
We'll ask him after the podcast.
I think this is probably the messiest, one of the messiest running back situations that there is in the NFL. I mean, Peterson's old. He doesn't play on passing downs. He fumbles all the time. And then you got Geis, who's coming off the ACL tears, never played it down in the NFL. Chris Thompson can't stay healthy. So I was left with the choice, well, who am I going to pick out of these 3? I'm going Chris Thompson only because I know of at least of a previous history where in our league catching passes matter so much. I'm going to go with that.
Aaron?
I see the situation happening as Houston marching out all those old, ragged starters that play well in the preseason and them giving up on it quite quickly and them going with the young guns. So I'm going to go with Geis.
Going with Geis. I actually said Adrian Peterson just for the reason that you kind of mentioned these other guys are injured, never have played in the NFL. They gave him a 2-year extension. He's going to get 20-plus carries, and carries and volume, at least at this point where we have draft guys, are super important. So I thought Adrian Peterson will at least get most of the run for most of the season. I agree with you. We'll probably see more guys at the end.
I think
But if you're talking about points total, I think it's going to be Adrian Peterson.
I think they give up on him by October. I think
don't think you pay him for 2 years to give up on him.
You can give that old man 20 carries? Crazy.
He did last year.
With a rookie quarterback?
And he missed a whole year, so technically he's 1 year less than he is NFL-wise. He had 8 games with 14-plus carries, 4 with 20. It's not going to change that much.
Hey, they still
Especially with a rookie quarterback if they bring in Haskins. They're going to give him the ball.
I'm glad I'm not a Washington fan. That's all I can say.
Hey, they
Amen.
still
Okay.
they
All right.
still give money to Frank
Amen.
Gore, and Frank Gore is older than Adrian Peterson.
So we're going to go through this pretty quick. We're already over an hour.
All right.
So let's talk about rookie running backs fairly quickly. When you're looking at rookie running backs, who are some guys you're thinking about drafting outside of Josh Jacobs? We know he's going to get drafted early, probably by the Raiders fan in our league. But who are some of the other running backs that are going to get drafted?
David Montgomery,
Okay, and who's he play for?
Chicago. I think he.
Go ahead.
And then I'll throw out again just to put the icing on the cake for stats projections for this podcast.
I just said we were over an hour.
Okay. Well,
Go.
okay. 300 carries, 1,000 yards, rushing, 800. Sorry.
Man, Trico ain't playing at all. He's getting 300 carries, I'll tell you.
8 touchdowns, 50 receptions, 500 yards receiving, and 4 receiving touchdowns.
That's like first or second round pick territory.
Not based on the stats he's throwing out. But the NFL is going to average about 100 points per game. Mikey, is there any other rookie running backs that should be on people's radars? Is there?
Well,
People love rookie running backs. in our
I
league.
kind of threw the one out there that you guys didn't have on your list was Alexander Madison.
That's a good one. And I honestly, I looked at your list. I said, who is this guy? And then realized, like, they don't have a backup with Murray gone. So I thought that was a really good job to pick
So,
them up.
yeah, that's my guy.
So he likes Madison. I mean, some other guys you should keep an eye on. Darrell Henderson, obviously, with the Rams. That might be one of the top handcuffs, as we'll talk about here in a second. Devin Singletary, you can't like any of the other guys in Buffalo, unless you're a TJ Yeldon fan, but he's more of kind of a receiving third down back. And Miles Sanders from Philly. They have a lot of cooks in the kitchen, but when you have a lot, it means you have zero. So if Miles Sanders is already dealing with, I think, a hamstring injury, is that right? He's already dealing with that, so he's already kind of fallen behind. He's another guy you should keep an eye on. How about some top handcuffs? Obviously, we won't get into the reasons why you should or shouldn't have one, but talk about some of the top handcuffs. Mikey mentioned Madison from the Vikings to back up Dalvin Cook. What about some other guys?
The other one, and the reason I didn't use him as my rookie, but he's my number one handcuff, is Darrell Henderson.
Yeah?
The Rams. He has to
important.
be the number one handcuff.
Does that mean you don't believe in Malcolm Brown?
I've seen Malcolm Brown. He's okay. But I think they drafted Henderson for a reason because they like his big playability in that offense. So, I mean, I think he's a big-time handcuff. I think Latavius Murray is a nice one to have, too, because whether or not you need him because Kamara gets hurt, I think he's valuable anyway because he's going to get some volume.
He's going to get the goal line carries.
Yeah.
Todd, do you have any handcuffs?
I'd maybe say Ronald Jones with Peyton Barber, just because you don't know.
Is he scoring double-digit touchdowns, too? Wow, Ronald Jones. You drafted him in the 3rd round. You're still on him?
He's
That dude had like 10 carries last year.
That's so
He
funny.
fumbled like 5 of them.
He is so loyal to his guys. It's unheard of. Some other guys, you have to draft Austin Eckler because he's a guy who can also produce even if Melvin Gordon's healthy. Jamal Williams to Aaron Jones, I think that's an important one. We already talked about Royce Freeman to Phillip Lindsay. Deion Lewis puts up stats, especially if you don't like him, like Derrick Henry. And then Ito Smith to Devonta Freeman. So I think those are the top handcuffs to keep an eye on that you might need to draft. Obviously, James Conner last year was drafted in the final round for Miles' team and ended up taking him a long way. So you got to have those those handcuffs. They're kind of important. Well, I guess he wasn't a handcuff. He didn't have Le'Veon Bell, so that probably doesn't make sense. So it's just important to get those guys late. All right, we'll finish the show with some rankings disputes. Let's first talk about Leonard Fournette. Todd had him 13th. I had him 16th, and Mikey had him 27th. Explain yourself.
All right. Actually, you guys give your case first. I'm looking for my Leonard Fournette projections. So I can
Well, you know who's got their projections ready? Todd Diamond.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay.
Come on, I just set you up. You
300
can't-
carries.
All right. Okay, so 140 carries, 600 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns, 25 yards receiving, 190 yards receiving, and 3 receiving touchdowns.
So does that mean you like him? I can't tell with your
That's
rankings.
terrible.
I can't tell with your rankings anymore.
What's terrible and what's not? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
140 carries. That means he has to be getting hurt, right?
That is not a good number of attempts.
Well, that's more of a kind of show me one because now obviously it actually has a quarterback now that actually can maybe produce compared to the previous one that we will not speak of.
Mikey?
You know, my problem with Leonard Fournette is he was injury prone in college. He's been injury prone to an extent so far. They're a team that likes to run him into the ground. I've been hearing that he's going to be more of a receiving threat, but that's one of those wait and see things for me. I have him at 705 yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, but only 38 catches for 304 and a touchdown. So I have a hard time seeing this Jacksonville offense being decent in general. Like, I just don't like it. I don't like the fact that he was out of shape last year. Like, I just don't like the situation.
Got into a fight last year. Got suspended.
Exactly.
He's injury prone and mentally prone.
There is so many things that I just don't like about this situation. I can guarantee you that he won't be on my team. I just don't see it happening. He'll be drafted way before I consider it.
Aaron, do you want to say anything about Fournette? No?
Not really.
No. Go ahead.
I was trying to think of something clever to say. There's nothing there.
Nothing there. He has just 58 receptions in 21 career games. He's averaged 3.9 and 3.3 yards per carry in his first 2 years. Offensive line last year was in shambles. They had a lot of injuries on the offensive line.
You're not helping your case.
I am not helping my case, but he's going to get the volume. And volume is big. And we're talking about I have guys like Devonta Freeman after him, Kenyon Drake. He's still effective when he's out there. Maybe not with the yards per carry, but he's going to get – if anybody gets 300 carries, it's going to be Leonard Fournette. Who is the backup in Jacksonville? Anybody know? Yeah, me neither.
Alfred Blue. Oh, that's my boy, Blue.
See, we got to talk about Alfred Blue after all. But I just think it's going to be – I mean, you never know what you're going to get in terms of injury-wise. But if you're talking about volume and he's effective, I mean, he still had 6 touchdowns in 8 games. So that's already 12 if he plays in double-digit in the full season. So I just think he is a talented running back. He's had a lot of things go against him, just like Devonta Freeman, just like Kenyon Drake. I'm sure the offense may not score a ton of points, but he still seems to produce when he's out there. Maybe not an effective rate, but they give him the ball. And I'd like to have that. Like, he's going to get 20 carries this week. Wouldn't you take that running back? I think you would. All right, let's talk about Kerryon Johnson. Todd hates him. 33rd.
That's ridiculous.
Mikey has him 14th. I have him 19th. So, Todd, what did Kerryon Johnson do to you? Did he steal one of your shoes from finish line?
Plays for Detroit. There was some games where he was non-existent. It's Detroit. They're no. I can't. I just can't trust him.
Hard-hitting
No,
analysis.
if you could, yeah, and here's the thing. See, you would have known that there was games when he was non-existent. Well, they waited forever to basically show that he was the number 1 running back. It's like, almost like, you're a rookie. We're not going to let you play right off the bat, even though clearly he was the best running back they had. And then once they finally get him in there, like week 7 or 8,
November,
he started showing out.
Yeah.
And it was so disappointing to me that like he was doing so well. I had traded Eric like an idiot. But then he got hurt and it kind of ruined the rest of his season.
It did.
But
and my season.
But I think that what you saw in the small sample size when they were finally kind of letting him have the run was you saw a really, really good running back that can catch the ball, that can run the ball, can do a lot of different things. So
but that still was that sample size.
You have to understand, though, Todd, is that even just because you're a bad team doesn't mean you can't put up fantasy points. But there's someone that's got to get yards, even if they don't score a touchdown. Someone's got to catch passes. Someone's got to run the ball.
But if that's the case, then the Giants were horrible. But Saquon still put up a lot.
Perfect example. So what's wrong with Kerryon Johnson?
Yeah, just because Matt Patricia has a pencil in his ear doesn't make him smart.
The thing I'll say about Kerryon Johnson,
Okay.
he caught 82% of his passes. That's a huge number. Huge number. He had 4 games, especially in the limited. He played in 9 games, 4 of those with 5+ targets. They like to throw to him once they finally started giving him opportunity. The thing that scares me about Kerryon is he has openly admitted he does not want to be a running back who has 20+ carries. Now, you don't necessarily need that to be effective. I think Dalvin Cook's going to be a big proponent of that. But as a running back, you kind of want carries, right?
Most do.
I mean, so I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too much in it. But I think he's yeah, exactly. The games I had him when he was effective, he was just fun to watch. He's got agility. Give him goal line carries. And who else did they have?
C.J. Anderson.
Theo Riddick.
Well, they're not going to run him.
So there you
But
go.
they do bring him in third down situations, so that's a good point. But
Okay, we have a couple more left to go here. Let's go a little bit quicker. Nick Chubb. Todd has him 11th. I have him 9th. Mikey has him 15th. You guys want to say about Nick Chubb?
I mean, I like Nick Chubb as a player, but
But not as a person?
I look at two different things when it comes to Nick Chubb. The first part is I feel like there is a lot of mouths to feed in Cleveland right now. And this is a team that's kind of centered around Baker Mayfield and then Landry and Beckham and Njoku. So he's kind of like I don't want to say the forgotten man, but it's kind of what he is. So there's that. My other thing is after 8 games, Kareem Hunt comes in there, and I've got some legit concern as to that costing him some of his workload once he comes in after week 8 and right around when we're hunting towards getting into the playoffs. So I had to drop him a little bit just for that.
Okay, Todd, do you want to say anything about Nick Chubb?
No, I mean, just kind of mimic Mikey's point about there's a lot of mouth to feed in that, in that Cleveland offense. So nothing really. And the Kareem Hunt thing, that's, we'll just, it's almost like you got to see where the Browns are going to be when he comes back.
Nick Chubb last year didn't get involved into the offense until week 8, where he had 16 total carries between week 1 and week 7, and he still almost put up 1,000 yards. This guy passes the eye test. He led the NFL in elusive rating. Oh, man, he's going to be so delicious watching him. 9th. I got him ranked 9th.
9th.
I love this kid. He catches the ball. He had one of the more, I don't have the stat. I read it, but I didn't write it down. But in terms of runs that were over 15 yards, he's one of the league leaders in that category. The thing that scares me, I always find things that oppose it, but the offensive coordinator is Todd Monken. He ran the Bucs offense the last 3 years, and you don't want someone like that helping out. And so he turns
Pass.
exactly 56% pass rate, 61%, and 62.
Yeah, new coaching. You don't know.
Let's talk about who has better running backs than Tampa Bay the last few years. So I just love what this guy brings to the table. They have a lot invested in him as a second-round pick. Of course, I'm worried about Kareem Hunt coming back, but if that dude is balling, like he doesn't need 20 carries to ball and put up incredible numbers. As I mentioned, he didn't really get started till week 8, and he still had almost 1,000 yards. I hope his receiving numbers go up a little bit, but he still had 2 touchdowns and averaged 5.2 yards per carry. I love Nick Chubb. Someone that I like.
Chubb.
That's right. Big Chubb for Chubb. The guy I like a little bit more than Mikey is Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, who we started the show off with. We'll let Todd start. Todd actually has him worse than Mikey, if you could believe that. 31st. What about Derrick Henry do you not like?
I just think the consistency. I mean, if Derrick Henry can do what he did in the second half of the season, then kudos.
The last 4 games of the season. Is that what it is, Mikey?
It's more like the last 3.
3, 4, whatever the case may be, but more consistency. I mean, he has to do this for at least for more than half a season, and then then I'm a believer. But other than that, yeah, he's at the bottom of the barrel.
Oh, man, I got to pull out the Godfather 3 reference, man.
Oh, man.
Oh,
here we
man.
go.
Just when I think that they're out, they pull me back in. Man, how many times, Eric, are you going to get roped into this Derrick Henry nonsense? Every year. It was so bad that week he had like 50 points. Nobody was playing him. Why?
Right, that Monday
because
night.
he was so bad throughout the year. So bad. He wasn't getting any points. You'd watch him every single week running up behind the center, getting tackled, 2-yard gain, 2-yard gain, 2-yard gain. So then 3 games left in the season, and he's facing a bunch of jokers like Jacksonville who let him put up a 50-point game, and all of a sudden that just jumps him up these rankings to where all of a sudden now he's like Superman. It jumped his yards to carry to like 4 something. Like, I'm not buying it. Sell me, because I mean, he won't be on my team. The guy doesn't catch balls either, and in our league, that's important.
I'm going to sell you. I'm going to sell you.
Oh my God!
I'm listening. It's volume. Now, if you talk about rankings, we don't have him ranked that high. Okay.
Not all volume.
If we talk about Derrick Henry, I have him 24th. Todd has him 31st. Mikey has him 29th. But if you're talking about the 24th ranked running back, it's volume. They're going to give him every opportunity. And in the games where he had 15-plus carries, he had some pretty bad ones, 18 for 56, 18 for 57, but then 17 for 238, 33 for 170, 21 for 84, and 16 for 93.
You know what's bad about those? You get an 18 for 56. So, you know, what is it? That's like 5 points. You don't get anything on top of that because he's not catching any passes.
Mm-hmm. He's not a big pass catcher, but he's going to have weeks where he breaks out.
Yeah,
so if you're talking about,
when that happens,
if you're talking, right, yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying he's going to be your number 1 or number 2 starter. He's going to be a flex option. So if you're talking about guys who I'm deciding between Derrick Henry, Peyton Barber, I like Sony Michel, so I'm fine with that. But Deion Lewis, LaShawn McCoy, I'm probably going to put Derrick Henry over those guys.
Yeah, but let me tell you something. Because when you talk about all these running backs going in the first 2 rounds, 24 may seem like it's low, but 24, you're talking about a 5th-round pick. 5th or 6th round. That's what you're talking about.
That seems kind of high.
Yeah, it does. You better
kinda
lower
high to
it.
watch paint dry.
You better lower it because that's where you're looking at.
I'm not going to lower him based on what round. I'm going to do it based on where I think running backs are.
Because you're looking at these running backs, you're looking at probably, I don't know, 12, 13 going in the first 2 rounds. And then so you're telling me only like 10 are going to go in the next 3 rounds? Probably not. Probably going to be more than that.
Sure, fine. But we're talking about where he ranks amongst the running backs that we have him.
It's terrible. Lower him.
I'm not going to lower him 24th. Based on my running back rankings, if James White and it's Derrick Henry, I'm taking Derrick Henry.
Oh, my gosh.
I don't know why that's so crazy to you.
Oh.
The only reason why James White was even fantasy relevant is because he scored 12 touchdowns. He's not getting that again.
The only reason that
he's going to go back down to his normal 4 or 5, and he's going to drop 10 points.
If those last
spots
3
in the
games
ranking
of the season didn't happen, Derrick Henry's like, he's not on my first
But you
page.
have to consider him as a flex option, depending on what you have on your roster.
He's not going to be on my roster, so I'm not considering him a flex option.
So you're telling me, all right, let's do it this way. So a guy that you have pretty close is LaShawn McCoy. If LaShawn McCoy comes in and what do you think he's going to get on a normal week? 10 carries, maybe? And Derrick Henry's going to get 20? You're going to pick LaShawn McCoy over Derrick Henry? You're not.
Tell you what I'll do. I'll draft a tight end.
We're not talking about, obviously I'm going to draft a tight end before I get Derrick Henry, depending on what we're talking about, but we're talking about where we don't even put tight ends in flex positions.
Let me show you what I'm doing.
So what are you talking
when
about?
I'm getting to that point where Derrick Henry's and LaShawn McCoy's name come up. I'm just
picking a backup tight end?
No. I'm just doing this. Crossing them off my list.
Aaron, I'm going to ask you the same question. If you're talking about LaShawn McCoy's got 10 carries and Derrick Henry's going to get 20 carries, you're going to take Derrick Henry, right?
That's a position I wouldn't want to be in.
Sure, but I mean, if you're talking about a flex position, and for someone like you last year who waited so long, that's going to be an option.
If you're smart about playing the matchups on that, but I think LaShawn McCoy at the end of the year is not going to really be worth anything. Where maybe you still might get some production out of Derrick Henry, but you deserve the torture of watching those games if you get him. Because it's going to be painful.
I agree.
You're just praying.
But you have to understand the situation I'm talking about.
I get it. If you're adding to your...
If you whether you pick him up, whether you draft him...
If you're playing him every week and he's on your team, then you were
I agree
lose.
with that. I agree with that. But there's going to be a situation where if he's getting 20 carries a game, 60 to 70 points, 60 to 70 yards rushing at least, maybe he gets a couple carries. Mikey has a sign that says tease. No one's saying he's going to finish in the top 20 in terms of running back rankings. I'm just saying that there's a guy out there that could get 20 carries a game. And I think you have to take that in consideration.
He's like the girl that you think's going to put out that never does.
That's a good.
Major friend zone. Okay, fine. I guess I'm the one that's going to be drafting him
Not
this year.
Not even friend zone. Not even fun to hang out with.
Not even a friend.
He won't even hold your hand.
It's a guy who has the poker table and the poker chips that you have to invite. Okay, fine. That doesn't make any sense. But
Those boring Titans games. You deserve the pain.
all right, let's finish up. This was an interesting one. Mark Ingram. Todd has him 23rd. Man, we were over an hour and a half here. Todd has him 23rd. Mikey has him 10th. And I have him 25th. I have Mark Ingram after Derrick Henry. So tell me why you like Mark Ingram. And I love Mark Ingram.
That's right. That's very
I
true.
Oh, my God.
loved Mark
Eric,
Ingram.
see that?
Oh,
Eric
my
loves his
God.
Baltimore backs. And he went
Oh,
against
my
it.
God. I can't even believe this, Eric. Like, usually I'm like, Todd comes out with some outlandish
Oh,
shit.
come
but
on.
that one wins the night.
That does not.
That one wins the night.
Out of all
folks.
those projections, get out of
That
here.
wins the night. Mark Ingram finishing below Derrick Henry. Oh, boy. Okay. And this is not outlandish for me to say he's top 10. I mean, he finished top 5 2 years ago.
Wow, 2 years ago in an offense that scored 30 points a game to a team that averages about 20 points a game.
Understand what's happening here. This is going to be a team that runs the ball pretty much more than any team maybe besides Seattle in the league. And you saw how effective it was. Like, Gus Edwards was putting up big-time points the way that this offense was running last year. Like, that whole dual-threat Lamar Jackson stuff that goes on, like, Mark Ingram's going to be a beast in this offense. Like, he's going to be getting the dump-offs. They're going to be running that read option stuff with him. He's going to be a big-time playmaker. Like, I have him finishing over 1,000.
Playmaker.
Yeah, I have him finishing over 1,000 yards. I have him at 10 rushing touchdowns, and I think he catches 42 passes on top of that.
Todd, go ahead.
I mean, the reason I have him ranked, he's going from Drew Brees to Lamar Jackson. Going from a high-powered offense to an offense that's still trying to figure itself out. So
All the carries.
I get he's going to get all the carries, but defenses are just going to stack the box for Ingram and make Lamar Jackson beat them. So.
But don't you understand they can't do that? It's the same thing that was going on when the Broncos had Tebow. Like, they knew Willis McGahee he was going to get the ball, but they didn't know where he was going to get it. When you run an offense like that, it's not going to be him just handing it straight up the middle. Sometimes it will. Sometimes it's going to be through an option. Sometimes they're going to fake it, have him run back the other way. It's just so many different things you can do with the way that they play.
Yeah, but
Mikey thinks this is a video game. You could just do whatever you want, whenever you want to do it. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Aaron, I'd love to.
I don't think it's that ridiculous, honestly.
Come on, man.
I agree with Mikey having
Holy
Ingram
cow.
over Derrick Henry.
Let's us go out there and just do whatever we want to do.
That's not how
on.
it works. But if you're going with an offense that's running back and running the ball focused, why would with the running back that's actually proved that he can what's the right word produce on that high level?
But he's never
Why
had
would
to
you
carry
turn
the load,
away with
though.
that?
But he's never had to carry the load really per se, because before Alvin Kamara got there, still had Drew Brees throwing the ball. So then when Kamara got there, then it was able to split the carry. So really, it's Ingram's show. It's Ingram's show. That's why they went out and got him.
Y'all better
Some
hope
juice in the tank. He's going to ride him hard. Yeah.
Y'all better hope I'm wrong, because if my first 3 picks line up to where it's Zeke, Damian Williams, and Mark Ingram, y'all in some trouble.
Baltimore is going to be a bad team next year. They're not making the playoffs next year.
I agree. I agree with
don't
that.
Lamar
necessarily disagree
Jackson,
with you.
I don't know what you think you're going to get out of Lamar Jackson.
I have him rushing for 1,000 yards.
Yeah, and he's passing for 1,000 too, because his offensive weapons are shit.
Maybe.
Willie Snead is his best wide receiver. Fuck that shit,
I'm
okay?
not- I'm not-
Mark Ingram ain't going to do shit. So he's going to run the ball. He'll get to 1,000 yards, fine, but he ain't scoring anywhere near 10 touchdowns.
This is a board.
That whole
this is a board bet,
team-
ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Put it on the board.
Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry. I guarantee you it's not.
I
even-
am not putting
I-
marking. Well, I mean, I
No,
guess
I'm
I have him
telling-
higher. But
Yeah, you have him higher.
guess I'd have to.
So this is the board bet,
Okay.
and I'm telling you, it is not
So-
even going to be close.
Okay, so
I take Ingram over Henry.
Okay, Ingram versus Henry. So are we deciding if it's who
I
gets
don't
more
want to do
rushing?
this yet. I don't want to do this yet.
Here, wait a minute, and let me just tell you my points difference on this.
Fine, go.
I have Mark Ingram finishing 59 points higher than Derrick Henry. Okay.
Okay.
Just give you a
The
little
Ravens will be
perspective.
lucky to get 60 points as a team over the season.
All right.
They're going to be a bad team. We saw what San Diego did to him in the playoffs.
Right, but you have to have the certain kind of personnel to be able to do that.
It's not like Gus Edwards was a terrible running back.
No,
And it's not like they were that good of a team.
Where is he ranked?
It's not, but I'm telling you, it's
Not high.
it's a different way of running your offense, and it's hard to defend if you don't have really fast linebackers.
If you are playing from behind, what the fuck are you going to do?
Throw the ball.
How many times have I cursed just on this particular subject?
Why are they going to be
Ravens-
behind? They still have a decent defense.
It's okay,
It's not
but
as
you're going to
good.
go against teams that can score points. We're in a scoring lead. Todd's team players and favorite guys are going to score 20 touchdowns.
What's the situation of the Ravens that's different from last year, though?
Their
They had
offense got worse.
They had an injured Flacco last year, and then they went with the
They went with Lamar Jackson.
Lamar anyway.
They lost 2 receivers.
It's no, come on, dude.
They weren't
Negligible.
that
Come
great, but I mean, they have no one now.
Yeah.
They lost Michael
Their best-
Crabtree.
They lost Crabtree and they lost Brown.
Yeah, but once
And you
Lamar-
saw what Brown did at the
Right.
beginning of the year.
Yeah,
There he's gone. They have Willie Snead,
but what I'm telling
Michael
you-
Floyd,
Right.
and a rookie.
What I'm telling you is that when Lamar Jackson got in there, they lost those guys anyway. They didn't really use them. They're not.
Yeah, they
they're
were
not
all-
important to
they
the
were all
offense
deep
they're
threats.
running.
They were all Flacco guys.
And,
Yeah.
what happened when they fell behind to the Chargers?
Well, and that's going to happen. Like I said,
gonna happen
The
a
Chargers
lot.
are an elite defense. There's not that
They
many,
weren't elite last year.
There's not that many defenses that have the personnel that the Chargers do.
I agree, of course. They have 2, and they didn't have those pass rushers because they were injured, both
Yeah.
Ingram and Bosa.
They've got fast linebackers and they have really good safeties.
They're not that good. They're not going to score a lot of points. And thus, I don't like Mark Ingram. That's the point of this conversation.
Board bet, Todd. Write it down.
I'm not ready for that board bet yet.
See?
We'll
Yeah.
write it down.
Okay.
We'll write it down.
Okay.
But I'm not ready to. I mean, we're only in June. There's a lot of things that can change.
So are we just betting on?
We're betting that Ingram, who has more points at the end
Who
of
has
the year,
more
Ingram
points?
or Henry.
Okay.
So that's it. That's the show. We should have led the show with that.
All right. That was
Interesting. Running backs. There's a lot of them. We didn't get to a lot of them, but there are a lot of them. And we'll talk more about a lot of these as we go along. Next week, or next time, not next week. Next time, we're going to talk about wide receivers. Woo. These are speed rankings. We should do more of those because they definitely get quite interesting. Aaron, Champ, thanks for coming on.
Do what I
Taking the
can
time.
when
You're
I
in
can
busy
do it.
work, yep,
Very
for
busy,
sure.
but,
So we
yeah.
appreciate that. You two, how can go? We're done here.
Thank you, everybody, for joining
On
us.
the
I
MHA.
hope we entertained you.
yes.
That's at the very least we're entertaining.
Yeah,
So
see?
definitely we'll check you next time on the MHA podcast.